Hello students, I am T. Ganesan, working as an assistant professor in the department of BS1, and today we are going to discuss about condition statement in C. So I want to discuss about the aim of the sessions. We want to introduce the condition statement for the decision making in C programming language and objectives. So in this session we are going to discuss about the condition statement and the importance of condition statements and as well as types of condition statements. And after discussing about the condition statement, we are going to implement some list of condition statements, that is if else and else if later. And last we are going to discuss about the conditional operator. The other name is called as ternary operators. At the end of the session you will get outcome as you can able to write the program by using the decision making statements, and we have to develop some codes based on the conditional operators. And let me go to topics. First, introductions. So in that one condition statements, these sessions we are going to perform the operation based on some specific conditions. The operations specified in the if block are executed if and only if the given condition is true. So we are going to discuss about these simple if else statements. So here I given as a syntax as well as the block diagram representation of if else statements. Here, if simple if statement is alone, tell us that if a condition is true, it will execute a block of statement, and when the condition is false, it is going to execute another set of statement called as else part. So here I given as a syntax nothing but the simple rules where we can use the if else statements and how we can use a if else statement in our codes. So here given as a keyword as a if, which is followed by some conditions. So here user can mention any type of conditions. When the condition is true, the control entered into the statements and it's going to execute this block of statements here. So this block will be executed when the condition is true only. Suppose if the condition is false, the control is transferred to else part and it's going to execute the block of statement within the else part. So this else part will works when the if condition is false. So the same syntax I have represented as block diagram here. This is a simple flow chart. So here the first point, the data is flowing from here, I am entering with the conditions. So here I want to mention my conditions. When the condition is true, the control is transferred to the true parts and it is going to execute the if code. This if code nothing but the block of statement which is represented inside the if statements. When the condition is false, the control transferred to false part, that's called as else part. It is going to execute the else block. So these are the statements for simple if else statements. Let me go for the simple example about the if else statements. And here I have taken a simple program. Initially I have some parameters, that is variable called age. I given some initial value as 19. Here I want to apply simple if else statements. If age is greater than or equal to 18, so here given I written as conditions. This is simple if else. If age is greater than or equal to 18, I am going to verify the conditions. So these if conditions will give two type of answers. One is true, another one is false. If condition is true, the answer is 1 here. If condition is false, the answer is 0 here. So I am going to check the values. Age is greater than or equal to 18. So already I have given age value as 19. So I am going to verify the conditions here. 19 is greater than or equal to 18. So the condition is true. So this if block will give answer as 1 here, so that the condition is true. So immediately control is enter into the if block and it is going to execute the block of statement. I am going to display the message to the user as the person is eligible for vote. Let assume that one, suppose age value is below 18. Suppose I given as 15. Let assume that the age value is 15 here. I am going to check the conditions. If age is greater than 18, that is 15 greater than or equal to 18. 15 is not greater than 18, so condition is false. So the if of it's going for 0. So if condition is false, the control immediately transfer to else part and it is going to display the not eligible for vote. So this if statement will execute any one here, that is either if parts or it is going for else part. If condition is true, it is going to execute a block of statement inside the if part, and condition is false, it's going to else part. Then next we will go for the next one, that is else if later. So else if later nothing but something advanced to the if else. So here the else if statement are used when the user have to decide among the multiple options. So here we have multiple options, that means that we have that number of options, so that we have to write number of conditions, and this else if statement will execute top to bottom, that is top down approaches, and that nothing but as soon as one of the conditions controlling the if is true, that means that first condition you have to write as if the statement associated with the if it is executed, and the first condition is nothing but that is if condition is true it is going to execute if statement, then and rest of the else part is bypassed, that means that if first if condition is true it never execute another else part and else pair and last one, directly control enter to exit options. If none of the condition is true, that means that here if condition is false and else if also false, then the control directly enter into the else part, that is called default options. Then the final else statement will execute it. If else later is similar to switch case. So this if else later we can use in another form called as switch case statements. Let me go to syntax of else if later. This is the index here. If I have some conditions here, so if I written the conditions, if condition is true, so the control enter into the if block and execute the block of statement inside the if statements. Suppose this condition is false, I have another option to check here, that's called else if. So control is transferred to else part, that is else if. Here also I have one more conditions. When this condition is true, it is going to enter into the else if part. So here we want to think about the one when we can go for else if part. So if you want to enter else if here, previously the if must be false and this else if must be true. That's what I written in the commands here. If you enter the else if, the if part must be false and else if must be true. Let assume this one, this if also false and the else if also false. So user have multiple options, so we can write again one more else if also if you required, correct? If you want to write multiple options, again we can write one more else if, we can verify the conditions. Let assume this one, if first if is false and else if is false and further all the else ifs are false, so the user have some default option that is called as else. So automatically control transfer the else part, it going to end of the statement, going to execute the last else part and further it's going for exit. And the same else if structure we have explained the flow chart here. Let's go for this one. This is start. I'm going to check the first conditions. If first condition is true, that means that first if is true, I'm going to skip all this else if part and as well as else part. If condition is true, directly I can execute the statement and finally I go for exit of the if. Suppose this condition is false, so I have another option called as else if. This condition is going to verify when this if is false, correct? So condition true, I'm going to execute here. If it is true, I can execute this else if statement and go for exit options. Suppose these all the else ifs are false and if also false, and the user have default option called as else part and it's going to execute the else body and finally go for exit. So this is a wonderful structure for else if later. That means that the user have multiple options. If any one option is true, it's getting executed. If none of the option is true, the user have given by default option called as else. And there is one question here, the else must be written at last of the else if. We cannot write as else part in between the else if. So first you have to write if, then further you have to write as else if, and last default option called as else part. So this is order way we have to write as else if later. Let's go to simple example about the else if later. So here I given a simple question to check whether the given number is positive or negative or 0. We have to check by using as else if later. This is wonderful questions. You can see here I have taken one simple integer value n equal to 5. So I want to verify this n is a positive number or negative or 0. So here I want to apply as else if later. You see the questions. So in the question they given as 3 options, either positive or negative or 0. So that they are given as 3 options. So if you given multiple options, we have to write as multiple conditions. Here they are given as 3 options. So minimum we have to write as 2 conditions, and last one we make it as a default one, because If none of the option is true, at least user has to give us last option getting true. So here there is 3 options available: positive, negative or 0. So we must write minimum 2 condition to finding this question's answers. So let's take n equal to 5. So initially I am checking conditions. If 5 is greater than 0, this condition is true. So directly I can enter into the if part. I am printing as it is a positive number. So when I want to say positive number, the first condition if must be true. Suppose I want to say that one number is negative. Let us assume this one, n equal to given -5. I taken as n value is -5. So first I am going to check the if conditions. -5 greater than 0. This condition is false. So directly control is transferred to else if part. And if you want to go for else if part here, it must be if must be false. This if is false, then only can go for else if. So here I want to verify -5 less than 0. It is definitely true. So control is transferred to else part, and else if it is going to print as negative numbers. Suppose I given as n value is 0. So I want to print the option as the given n value is 0. So initially I am checking conditions. If 0 greater than 0, the condition is false, and control transfer to else if. I am checking conditions again here. 0 less than 0, again the condition is false. You can see here the first option is false and second option is false. So totally we have only 3 options. Already 2 options are false here. So we have only default option as that's 0. So condition is directly transferred to else part. I am printing as the given number is 0. So when you go for the multiple options, the last option must be default options here. So in this question they given us 3 different options. At least user have tried as 2 conditions, and last one is making as a default one. So this is very simple example we can understand as else if later. And next one we will go for the conditional operators. This conditional operator is another form of simple if else. Correct? So because in place of using simple if else statement, we can write as conditional statements. That is called conditional operators. Because if write a simple if else statement, we have to write more number of lines. Instead of writing more number of lines, we can write as shortest way called as conditional operators. And it have another name is called as ternary operators, because we are going to use as 3 different operators in this conditional operators. One is called, this is given syntax of the ternary operators. You can see is one. I have given as expression 1 and followed by question mark, and expression 2 and followed by colon, and expression 3. So we have 3 different operands here. Generally we use only as 2 operands, but ternary operators we are using as 3 different operands, so that is called as ternary. So you can see the execution of the syntax parameters. Expression 1, it's nothing but given condition. User can mention here any type of conditions, that is called as expressions. You can see the flow here. If the condition is true, the control is transferred to the next part of the question marks, that is called expression 2. If expression 1 condition is true, the question mark will validate whether condition is true or not. If condition is true, the control transferred to next part of the question mark, and this will be returned to the resultant variables. Whatever the values given, or if you given any statements or variables or values, anything else, whatever you given here in the expression 2, it will be returned to the variables. Suppose if expression 1 is false, I given some wrong conditions, or this condition is not met here, this expression 1 is getting false, the control is transferred to next to the colon, that's called expression 3, and this here whatever the answers we given, it is returned back to the resultant variables. So here also you have 2 different options. When the condition is true, the control transferred to next part of the question mark. If condition is false, the control is transferred to next part of the colon. So there are 2 different options available. Either we can give a resultant variables as expression 2 or expression 3. It depends on your conditions. That is called expression 1. And this is called as simply ternary operators. We want to use 3 different operands, that is expression 1 and 2 and 3. And we'll go for further one more simple example about the conditional operators. Let's see here. So these are beautiful questions here. So I have 2 different variables a and b. and I want to find which is the max value. So I have taken initially two parameters, that is int a equal to 10 and b equal to 5, and one more parameter is called as max. So I want to find out which variable have the maximum values. So I written as ternary operator here, simply max equal to a greater than b. So this is my expressions. I written as expression 1, that is called as a greater than b. So this is called as simple relational operator. It gives as true or false. If a value is greater than b, the answer is 1. So the condition is true. If condition is true, the control is transferred to next part of the question mark, that's called as a. So a will be returned to max. Suppose if a is less than b, condition is false here. So the control transferred to next part of the colon, that's called as b. Now b will be returned to max. Now give the given values. A value is given 10 and b value 5 here. 10 greater than 5, the condition is true. So this expression 1 is true. If expression 1 is true, the control is transferred to after the question mark, that is called as a. Now a value is at 10, the 10 will be written to max. Now I am printing the values. Greatest number is percentage d comma max. Now what will the value be there in the max? It definitely will be 10. Now 10 will be printed in the screen, that's called as max value. So ternary operators works like that only. So we have to use three different operands. So here instead of writing a and b, directly we can write our printf statement also here. After question mark, directly we can print as the max value is a, or colon, after colon we can write as the max value is b. So this conditional operator or ternary operators, it is another form of simple if else. And so in this session we have discussed about the various way of using simple if else statements and else if later. And we have seen this one, the simple syntax of simple if else and else if later, and the block diagram of simple if else and else if later. And there is some point you have to remember here. Yes, condition statements are used to execute some block of statements based on the specific conditions. When we have some set of conditions, sorry, or if you want to execute any block of statements when the condition is true, so at the time we can use as simple if else or else if later. And there is important points. Without if statement, we cannot write as else part. If written like that, we'll get an error as misplaced else error. And ternary operator is known as conditional operator because it's called as three different operands we are going to use, and already we said about this one. This ternary operator is another form of simple if else. So when the question we get that one simple if else operators, are the same questions we can apply for ternary operator also. And we have to use a proper conditional operator to make the code as short and clean and more as readable, because when we use the proper conditional operators, only we can execute our statements or block of codes. And this is a reference book. You can refer the conditional operators and simple if else and nested if else statements, and these are the web link. We can learn about the online source. Thank you.